All right, well, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So, the greatest generation, I believe it was Tom Brokaw who coined that phrase, correct?
I think you're right. Yes, and it's intimidating. There's not too many of those guys left and gals, and it's really an honor each time you get to meet them, and even more so when you get to work with them, as I've been privileged to do. But it's always a little intimidating when you go there and you're speaking to someone that's been through as much as they've been through, and you just kind of hang on and listen and do your best.
And the stories they tell, I bet.
They're just amazing, and everybody has a different story, obviously, and there's certain threads that'll come through. But the one thing that always amazes me is how humble they are. Oh, I didn't do that much, and I was just doing my job. That's what you hear all the time. I was just doing my job. And it turns out that their job included two bronze medals, a couple of silver stars, a medal of honor. It just blows you away. And and it's not just the guys. I mean, the women, the wives, the mothers. I was talking to one woman who would say she would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, get the kids out to school, go to work, come back, make her husband would work on the night shift, make her husband's dinner, go back to a different job. And, meanwhile, the oldest child was there to watch the kids. It's just amazing. You have entire families that are working together to get through the war.
You say working together, and it just it was a time in this country where everyone came together to fight a common foe. And it occurs to me today, what can today's generation learn from that generation when today we, and pardon me, but we can't even get people to agree to wear a mask. you know, it was a different time.
Well, that's a good point. And there's a couple of things, and one thing that some of the veterans that I've spoken to will point out that we went through the Depression, so that kind of gave us a little bit of training to deal with adversity. The other thing I think that's important to remember is that to them on the ground at the time, things weren't perfect. There were times not everybody was on board with the war before Pearl Harbor and even after Pearl Harbor, but they kind of, the fact that things were not perfect and yet they were able to get through and survive. I think that gives us hope. I mean, it's like human nature to focus on disagreements, to focus on the bad stuff that's going on, and not to take that step back and say, there is a lot of disagreement in the world, and there's a lot of fractions and infighting, but underneath all of that, we all want to get better. We all want the kids to learn. We want people going back to school, businesses reopening. And if we can just put some of those differences aside and keep going and saying, look, you know what, we don't have to totally agree on every little thing, but let's agree on these big things, and let's get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Not everybody was a soldier, but as you mentioned, you know, even buying war bonds was a way to contribute, right? And
Absolutely.
I mean, everyone tried to do their part, no matter how small. But everyone tried to contribute in some way the best that they could for the common good.
Absolutely. They had in some ways it was, not that it was easy, but they had an enemy that they could focus on. And, today, I think too many times we focus on other people, on people getting in the way of what we want to achieve, and we forget that that in order to achieve greatness, we have to all work together, which is what the people of that generation did. I'm actually
So do
kind
you,
of,
so do you think that that's the lesson that this generation can learn from theirs?
Yes, that's what I think, that one of the big lessons we can learn is to be optimistic in the face of great adversity, that they faced things that were at least as destructive and potentially, life-ending, world-ending even, uh, than the things that we're facing. And if they could get through it, we can get through it. But human biology hasn't changed all that much. So, we have to just take the example of our grandparents and great grandparents in some instances and just, carry on, muddle through. Yes, we're not going to be perfect. Yes, there's a lot of things that we have to do, but they did it. Let's just keep going.
Thank you, sir, so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great day.
Hey, you too. Thanks for having
All
me
right.
on.
All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye.